Welcome to the first of a new series of Bert's Books on YouTube. I am Bert. This is the fiction range in the shop in Swindon, and finally thought we'd get around to trying out a few longer versions of some of our reviews and things that you can watch on YouTube. So the first thing we're going to talk about in this video is the books that I read in January, which you can just see over my shoulder right there. I'm using a new microphone as well, so this is quite exciting. Sally said to me, don't use it with the funny little fuzzy thing on it because you'll look like a knob. Well, I've checked all the sound, I've tried it in different ways, and this is the best sound possible. So I might look like a knob, but I sound very good. So let's take a look. I actually didn't read a huge amount in January because we had quite a big month with Alice Feeney. She came in, she signed copies of her newest book, My Husband's Wife, and I then spent about 2 weeks packing them and sending them out to make sure that everybody got their copy in time for publication day, which was this week just gone. So I've been a bit sort of lax. And I think actually as well, during that time, one of the books that I was reading, it didn't grab me in a way that made me want to keep going. It's The Impossible Thing by Belinda Bauer. You can see there on the spine. Because I take the dust jackets off. It'd be really interesting. I know we're going to get loads of people turn around and say that dust jackets should be kept on, but for me, I like to depart with them fairly quickly. And so this will now go onto my bookshelf at home without the dust jacket. And look at that on the front, that beautiful red egg. This was the book that I was reading whilst working on Alice Feeney's book. And it's because it was kind of the perfect book. So yes, it didn't grab me. It wasn't a thriller. It wasn't one of those books that I needed to turn over every single page and just keep going and going and going. I was reading maybe 50 pages in one go, so like half an hour or so of reading, and then I could put it down. And quite often I was doing that at midnight or 1 a.m. because I was busy working. And it was a good book for that. So we're set in multiple different timelines, but it's a book about Weird Nick and Patrick, who have appeared in Belinda's previous books. And you don't need to have read the previous books, previous adventures featuring those characters, because I haven't read Belinda's books before, and I didn't know until the end that for sure that they had featured in a previous book. I did read, as I was reading this, I did think, ooh, I feel like that's a reference to a previous adventure. Like that's too interesting just to be backstory. There must have been another book in that. But you don't need to have read that book in order to enjoy this one. And also this one doesn't spoil the previous book with them in. So the book starts out for these two guys in that Patrick goes round to Weird Nick's house, finds Weird Nick's mum tied up on the floor. Weird Nick is tied up in his bedroom, and the house has been ransacked. The only thing that's been taken is a display box with a red egg in it. Now, the trade of eggs is illegal. Birds' eggs, as in the wild birds, the trade of their eggs is illegal. You can still buy eggs from the supermarket. I've double checked that. That hasn't changed. This specific egg is a guillemot's egg. I didn't know what that was. I do now. And Celie, a young girl in 1926, goes down and collects these eggs. She's the only one who can because it's really inaccessible except for a tiny little crack. She goes down and collects this bright red egg, and it's rare. It's called the Maitland egg. Nobody's ever seen it before. And this one guy does a contract with her to collect them for sort of in perpetuity. And she collects 30 of them for him. And when Weird Nick, 100 years later, puts the egg onto eBay, it gets some attention. It's taken down by eBay. They tell him, no, you can't sell an egg. But people have noticed it. And that is what we think as a reader, as Weird Nick and Patrick, that's what we think has led to their egg being stolen. So they go on kind of this then adventure to try and track down their egg, find out who has it. And we learn about that, we follow that, but we also learn about Celie's life 100 years before, and we follow a few different people. But my favourite bit was the birds themselves. We get a very brief chapter featuring the birds that the egg is being taken from. This rare pair of birds that are producing this red egg. and it's a little bit heartbreaking because it talks about how they're going back to their nest and finding their egg gone, and they don't know where it's gone. They go off and they follow all the other guillemots, and they fly halfway across the world to wherever it is they go, and they don't have a chick to raise. And you feel a bit heartbroken by that. But Belinda's writing was so good that for me, getting to the end of the book and knowing kind of what happens to these birds was kind of the most important thing for me. You do know that that is resolved. You find out whether or not they have another egg, but I'm not going to spoil that here. It is The Impossible Thing by Belinda Bauer, and you can order it at bertsbooks.co.uk. It comes out in paperback in February. Now, I started the year by reading Main Characters by Bobby Palmer, which I don't have a copy of. I do have a copy of Isaac and the Egg, though. I don't have a copy of it because Michael's reading it as we speak. So I have yet to find out his thoughts on it. So I will be doing that soon. But here's the cover. That's what that looks like. It's coming out in, I think, July. And it's about two characters who fall in love. And it's the story of their relationship. It's a fairly simple love story told over the years of what happens to them, but it's told from the viewpoint of all the people around them. So we don't ever see it from their point of view. We see it from the person who's in the park when they first meet. We see it from the point of view of the barista who meets them when they're getting their first coffee together. We see it from the point of view of the people they work with, their family, the strangers on the street, estate agents, the just the people around them that they come into contact with. And I really liked it. I love Bobby's writing, have done since his debut came out, Isaac and the Egg. He's written some really different books. So this is his third novel. Small Hours was his second, which was very different to Isaac and the Egg. And Main Characters is different to both of those too. But the trick is the writing is brilliant. And you want to keep on reading and following them, following the main characters, which is why it's called Main Characters. I really enjoyed it. I felt at times it was a little bit contrived because they have these big sort of relationship moments which most people would not do in the presence of other people. So in order to talk about them, they had to be in a moment where somebody was witness to it. And that didn't always work for me, but it was good enough that I was able to forgive that. Now, I also felt that at times it was all quite surface level, that we never sort of really saw it from their point of view. I mean, obviously that's the point, but it came across as quite shallow in some instances, that we never really got into the depths of their feelings unless they said it out loud, or somebody who was their best friend might have said, oh, so and so told me that he really felt this. Like it's well done, but I think this style of novel, it could be quite tricky. I think anytime it gets a little too shallow or a little too contrived, Bobby is quite good in pulling it back and going to a different viewpoint or a different point of the story, or a different character that is a little bit more close to them, and that really works. If you haven't also, by the way, checked out Isaac and the Egg, then do that as well. But you can pre-order Bobby Palmer's Main Characters at Bert's Books right now. We've got Will Dean coming to the shop in February. So I've been reading his new novel, Adrift. It comes out in February. He's coming to join us on the 16th of February. Tickets are sold out. You can't come. Sorry about that. But he's going to be talking about this one, which is... I don't know if you've read Will Dean before, you'll know he writes quite different stuff. So the first one of his that I read was a book called The Last Thing to Burn. He's written a series, the two Vermudison novels, which are detective novels. Last Thing to Burn is quite a claustrophobic thriller. It's about a woman who's held captive by her husband. He's trafficked her in from another country, and she can't escape from him. Then he's written others which are sort of kind of over-the-top melodramatic thrillers, like The Last Passenger, about a woman who wakes up on a cruise ship and there's nobody else there. And so they're all quite different. This one is more akin to The Last Thing to Burn than anything else he's written since. This is about a family who live on a small canal boat. And the mother is Peggy, the son is Samson, and it's told entirely from their point of view. It switches viewpoints. And their husband, their father, is abusive, he's controlling, he does not want them doing anything he doesn't approve of. Everything is in service of him. His writing, he's a writer, not a very good one. He's won an award for like most promising writer or a debut writer, but that was many years ago, and kind of that isn't a promise that's fulfilled. Um, I felt this one, it's not a thriller. It's not crime. This is literary fiction, and it's just brilliant. I loved it. I couldn't stop reading this one. I think it might be Will's best since Last Thing to Burn. I've enjoyed all of his books subsequently for different reasons, but this is why I started reading Will, and this is why he became like one of my must-read writers. So that is Adrift. This is the proof copy. The actual cover looks like this. There it is. But you can pre-order it right now at Bert's. We'll have signed copies, so you can get that one as well. Now, coming with Will Dean, we've got another author, and that is Harriet Tice. This is her new novel, Witch Trial. Now, we'll just get this sort of elephant in the room out of the way. Harriet Tice is Harriet from The Traitors. Now, Harriet was already coming to Bert's. We're not jumping on a bandwagon. We love Harriet. She wrote a book called Blood Orange. That was her debut book. Came out in, I think, 2019. You've possibly read it. It was absolutely huge at the time. This is her new one, Witch Trial. It's based on a trial told from the point of view of a jury member. Matthew, his name is, I think. He's a heart surgeon, and he's kind of wants to escape his life. He's having an affair. He's maybe, not that happy. He gets called to jury service, and he's like, this is brilliant. I can just cut off from the world for a bit. So he's just got like a brick of a phone. He doesn't really contact anyone. He goes and hides in a flat that he owns with his wife, but he just sort of sequesters himself there. Harriet used to be a barrister. She did say that she was going to stop writing about barristers because she hasn't practiced for a long time. And what she's done, though, is she's written about a court case from the point of view of somebody who isn't a barrister. So it's still in that world, but it doesn't necessarily rely on the sort of in-depth knowledge that a barrister might have. It's about two girls. They're on trial for the murder of another girl. They're all about 15, 16, and they claim to be witches. And they scared this girl to death. That's what's happened. She's been scared to death. She's had some sort of heart failure. She's had heart problems all her life, and they scared her. They scared her into dying. Now the defense is that she was gonna die. That's the thing. That they've been told by, like, I don't know, the devil, that she was going to die. So they just told her, and they were trying to help prepare her for that death. It's sinister, it's creepy, and it starts to not make sense as you go through it. And you start to realize that maybe not everything in Matthew's life is as it seems. I'm not going to tell you anything more about it, except it's out on the 26th of February. She's coming, Harriet is, to Bert's to talk to us alongside Will Dean. You also still can't come to the event because it is still sold out, but you can pre-order a signed and dedicated copy right now at Bert's Books. Now, I've talked a lot about books that aren't out yet. I'm going to tell you now about the books that I read this month that are out. Obviously, The Impossible Thing is already out, but this one has come out in January. This is the proof copy of Meet the Newmans. I really like this cover. However, this is what it actually looks like. So if you're going into a shop, that's the cover you're looking for. I Really liked it. It's set in 1960s America. The Newmans are a family on a sitcom. They've been going for about 12 years. They're a real life family playing themselves. It's been going since 1952. It's full of 1950s sort of sensibilities. And by the time of 1964, they're out of date. They might be America's favorite family, but they're kind of looked on as a bit of a throwback to a time when things were different. This is told from the point of view of Dinah, and was told from the point of view of several different characters, but Dinah's kind of our main one. She's the woman on the cover. She's the mum of the family, two sons, a husband, and the husband, Dell, does everything. He writes it, he films it, he directs it, he stars in it, he produces it. He's everything. And then he's in a car accident. And he's in a car accident as they're approaching the final episodes of what could be their final season. Sponsors are dropping out. They've been told they've got to rework the show. And he ends up in a coma. And so the family and Stanley, who is an executive producer of the show, are left with some options. They've got some problems. They've got to sort it out. And they decide to, well, Dinah stands up and says, I'm going to write the shine. I'm going to write the final episode. I'm going to do the final episode of the season. And her son Guy, he's gonna direct. And what you then get is Guy and Shep and Dinah. So Shep is the other son, who is just like he's really young. He was a child when it started. He's grown up completely in the public eye, and he's so popular. Like he's in the music charts. He's number 6 in the music charts, which doesn't sound. I mean, it's a big number. It's not number 1 though. But when you remember that actually this is the time when Beatles were numbers 1 through to 5, Shep is like the second biggest person in the US in terms of that scene. Guy just wants to escape from his father's shadow a bit. He wants his own life. He is being controlled like everything's so tightly controlled. They want him. The studio want him to marry his on-screen girlfriend on the show. They want to do a live episode. They want him to marry on the show, and they want him to marry her in real life as well, because then the next season is going to be them taking over, and it's going to be the Newmans in the 60s, and it's going to be from their point of view of this young family. Guy is in love with someone else. He's in love with Kelly. He lives with Kelly. Kelly and he live in a house on the grounds near to where the rest of the Newmans live. But the world doesn't know about Kelly. Well, they know about Kelly. Kelly's a film star. But they don't know that Guy and Kelly are together. And they don't know they're anything more than friends. And that's because Kelly's a man. And they just can't tell anyone. It's 1960s America. It will ruin both of their careers. So that's Dell's problem. That's Guy's problem. And then Dinah she's confronted by a journalist, a young woman who is making her own way in the world. She's trying to be a sort of news serious journalist. She's on the lifestyle section of her magazine, of where she works, and she's like facing off her own issues with men in the workplace and the struggles that she's having there. And what she does is she goes to do an interview with Dinah, and she confronts her, and she says, Dinah, you are holding us back. The woman that you are portraying on TV is not helpful to the feminist cause. She is trapped in 1952, and she is presenting this world of an ideal housewife when that is not all we are. And Dinah responds, but that's not all who I am either. And it's that sort of makes her reassess her life. It's that forces her to go, I'm going to write this episode. And the whole book just sort of explores what life was like in the 60s. The best way I have of describing this is Lessons in Chemistry if it was written by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And one of my favorite books of the month. Absolutely, definitely really enjoyed that. You can buy this now. It's out. Just go into a shop, go into Bert's Books, come into Swindon, buy the book, get it now. Or you can order it online. And then the final book I'm going to talk to you about, we do a book club. In fact, we do 2 book clubs in the shop every month. We do a general fiction book club, and we do a LGBT book club. And in our LGBT book club, we read Evenings and Weekends by Oisin McKenna. And this is set over the course of one weekend, in fact, although it says plural, it's just one. And it's in the sort of hot summer of 2019. And like this group of people, they're like, it's a really tricky one to describe. Nothing really happens, but then sort of everything happens. It's just the way they're dealing with their lives in that time. So you've kind of got Maggie, who is pregnant. She's dating this guy, Ed, and she isn't sure if she's losing herself a bit. She's not who she used to be. She's then got her best friend Phil, who is a gay man. He lives in kind of like this, almost like well, it's not like an old warehouse, and there's a load of people who are living there who probably shouldn't be living there. If you've ever seen the sitcom Crashing, which was written by Phoebe Waller-Bridge before Fleabag, stars my favourite Jonathan Bailey, then it's kind of like that situation. If you haven't watched Crashing, go and check that out. It's very, very good. But yeah, Phil is kind of in this sort of relationship with Keith, but Keith has a boyfriend. Keith and his boyfriend are in an open relationship, or an ethically non-monogamous relationship. So they're a couple, very much a couple, but they will have sex with other people. But Phil's falling for Keith, so that's a problem. Then you've got Phil's brother Callum, who's getting married. You got Phil's mum, who's got cancer and hasn't told Phil yet. And then there's a beached whale in the Thames. There's so much going on, but we just sort of meander through each of their lives and get to know these people and work out what is going on with them. And I loved it. This came out in 2025. I only read it at the very beginning of 2026. And if I had read this in 2025, it would have been my book of the year easily for last year. I just thought it was brilliant. I think you need to read this book, Evenings and Weekends, by Oisin McKenna. I really loved it. I think it says a lot about the world that we live in, about the kind of the people that we are and who we are and how we're losing ourselves and what we're doing with our lives. And I think it's just told in such a real way. Like there's no veneer, there's no sort of slick gloss put on this because it's fiction or it's a novel. Like it just goes into the sort of nitty gritty of what life is like. It was an interesting discussion in book club. Everyone really liked it. But there was somebody who felt that Maggie's story wasn't necessarily given the right sort of interrogation with it. Maybe if it had been written by a woman, it would have been handled differently. But you know, they still liked it. The book was still well received and really enjoyed it. I loved it. For me personally, new favorite writer. I don't have favorites. If anyone asks, I everyone's my favorite. I'm like Bruce Forsyth. You're all my favorites. Evenings and Weekends. That is out now. You can get that right away in paperback, in fact. So that was my January reads. I read 6 books, which is a little less for me than I would normally read, but that's because I've been really busy with the Alice Feeneys. I'm going to read even more. Right now I'm reading Wayward by Amelia Hart, which I'm reading for our book club, our general fiction book club. So I'll be talking about that in my February roundup video, which will come at the end of February or maybe the beginning of March. Who knows? If you would like to find any of these books, you can find them at bertsbooks.co.uk. I highly recommend them all, actually. There's not a dud one there. And you also can come into the shop if you're in Swindon. Why not pop in and say hello? That's I don't really know how to end a YouTube video. Maybe I just end it by saying goodbye and keep reading.